Buongiorno and welcome to Solo Italian Black Metal Project. This one is Hesperia with the new album out from 2025. This is a title in two parts fra il Monti Sibillini or Black Medieval Winter over the Sicilian Mountains. Roughly, that's the name. So, very wintry themes. One man on the cover with corpse and somewhat, I don't know, LARPing outfit. Doesn't really look Italian, but let's bear in mind that Italy is more than just, warm regions around the Mediterranean parts, and there are actually, northern parts where it gets cold, even mountains and all. So, yes, let's not confuse Italian warmth with the lack of mountains and castles and all that stuff. After all, it's a country with a lot of history and lots of geographical and cultural differences. This is a peculiar case because this one has existed for quite long time and it's one-man operated thing. Here you have Hesperus, the artist himself, and now the word Hesperia needs to a little bit of background information. If you look it up on, say, Wikipedia, for instance, among other sources, you will find that Hesperia can refer to old Italy as well as Spain. So Iberian Peninsula as well as Italy as region, not so much as country, based on what Greek people used to say. So some people might say yes, very, very much the early names of Italy, but also applies to Spain. So that's about the history lesson here, but there are information on this booklet about why this thing, this context, this theme, etc. are here used. Now let's talk about the album and the band a little bit more. So when I mentioned it's a little bit older band, was founded in 1997, so almost 30 years in the making, and during those years, quite a few albums as well. As you can see in the members list here, Metal Archives, only one member, Hesperus, has been in the band ever since, and this as such puts it into the box known as solo black metal projects, or just solo projects. So is this an Italian version of Burzum and the like? In a way, sure. In other ways, not so much, but you see the similarities here. One man operates the whole thing here, the whole ordeal, and as such, there's nobody to really say like, hey, what about this and that idea? Should you leave it off or should you expand on this and that? And that can go as a blessing or curse, depending from your point of view, as well as, artistic approach to it. So, a few albums in the game already throughout the years. Earlier, maybe a little bit more hasty with their releases, but ever since it has been putting out albums every few years. Here you see first two albums came back to back earlier than 4 years, another 5 years, 2 years, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and another 4 years to this one. So pretty consistent overall on average if you really think about it. And musically, here it is labeled as atmospheric pagan black metal about Italian history. So far, so good. But there are also a couple of buts. First of all, let's tackle the main problem with the album. First of all, it runs more than 76 minutes. That's too much unless you're really creating 10 out of 10 albums. It's not like I have problems against lengthy albums. Actually, back in the 90s, I was the kind of a person who pretty much said that the more the merrier, meaning if you can release, say, 60, 70 minutes of music, why not to do it instead of, going for the Raining Blood of less than 30 minutes. That is something that along the years I started, change perspective. First of all, not every band should really put just out everything you have, because rarely the quality meets the quantity. And that's very much the problem with this album as well. So there is just too much of that filler material really to justify it all. It's not like I have problem when a really, really good album is something like 70 minutes. I mean, better when there is more of that. But much like in very many other cases, this one also is a little bit problematic. Now you might remember my Burzum reference. Think about Philosophem, one of the most liked Burzum album. Half of the album is just ambient. yeah, some people really like that stuff as much as the metal stuff. And a lot of people are like saying it's just waste of space there. So this kind of thing is going on with this album as well. Without the ambience though, but this ain't no one-trick pony, which once again can be seen either blessing or curse. Blessing in the sense there's a lot of variety on this album, and it's, in a way, a very nice thing to have. On the other side of things, this is almost like a compilation when it comes to, the material itself, which brings me to more like, Isengard's Winterskugge album. Some album that has a lot of great black metal stuff, some folkier parts, some death metal stuff, and you get the idea. It's just compilation where you have a lot of various ideas and they don't necessarily fit in with one another. The same applies with this album. Let's put it like this. The album's about 1/3. The beginning is very much like, or maybe closer to half of the album, is pretty much like medieval black metal. You have all the medieval LARPing ideas. Like, it's almost like entirely different album than the rest of it. The first part is, sounding kind of uplifting, even happy at sometimes. It's almost like if you wanted to create a fantasy series black metal. You probably have heard a lot of those albums where you just get the folky tunes, and it's definitely more folky, fantasy inspired, medieval sounding stuff with, the pipes and all the non-metallic instruments, if you want to go that far. But then again, there are black metal parts too. Then over the course of the whole album, it starts to change, and suddenly you realize there are no folky parts anymore. Now this is more second wave traditional black metal without those folky, fantasy, medieval tunes. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing that you change the course, the narrative, if you will, but it also puts people wondering, like, why on earth you have this climate change, as a metaphor, with the given album. I mean, why not make it two different styles? One medieval one, check, and one another one, check. Now it's almost like you're just putting everything together just because you have done it already. And as such, it seems like it's almost like a split album with one artist. And as a result, it feels very, very, how to say, not so balanced. It's like an imbalanced album in a way that certain ideas is very good, not very good, but good nonetheless. And then there are lots of filler parts and just some parts which don't really fit the bill at all. And after a couple of spins, I actually started wondering that I don't even feel comfortable listening to this one, because 76 minutes of music which you are not totally enjoying feels quite negative, right? So when I was, pondering my take on the album, I felt like I have to be honest with myself. I have to be honest with the audience as well. And I'm gonna say this isn't a good album. It's not a bad album, but it's a mediocrity overall. There are lots of nice ideas, which I really like, especially towards the end. But because of those filler parts throughout the course, and not necessarily just in the beginning with the more medieval stuff, which I'm not too much into, I started feeling like if I feel about an album that I'm not enthusiastic in listening to it, but it feels like a chore, kind of a job I have to just go through, it's not gonna be a good album. I cannot be honest at the same time and say, yeah, I really didn't enjoy the album. I didn't really look forward to listening to it. But here it goes, happy times. No, it wasn't happy times. I would say if only about 37 minutes of this album, or just 50% of this album, the best pieces were used, I would be, hey, this is pretty good of an album, you should totally check it out. Now I feel like you're gonna get disappointed with some of the ideas here, and you're gonna like some of them. So I'm very, very divided with the outcome here. So once again, we come to the very problem with one-man bands. When there's nobody to stop you putting all your silly ideas into one box, the outcome can be just anything. Just listen to the latest Burzum album, the Burzum new one, and you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes then again, one-man bands do greatest of the stuff. Just check out the early Burzum for that matter. So I'm saying this is very much for acquired taste, kind of a black metal. If you like medieval black metal, sure, go for it. If you like more traditional second wave black metal, sure, go for it. If you like both worlds, go for it, definitely. Just don't expect the next classic album and you're good to go. Now, this album was released already in mid-January 2025 by Hammerheart Records. For acquired taste only, not a bad one, not a good one either, something in between. Links are provided in the description box, so what are you waiting for? Give it a go. Bye.